Every piece of marketing for the Sydney Marathon shows you the same two images. Runners crossing the Harbour Bridge with the sun coming up behind them. Runners crossing the finish line with the Opera House sails filling the frame. That's the whole pitch, and it worked. 40,000 people bought entries this year, and the race sold out. Neither image is where the race actually gets decided. Runners start at St Leonards Park in North Sydney, at the highest point on the entire course, then drop into a steep downhill before the road climbs back up onto the Harbour Bridge deck. All of that happens inside the first 3 kilometers. 3 separate wave starts send different groups off between 6:31 and 7:41 in the morning, but the course doesn't care which wave you're in. Everyone gets the same downhill invitation to go out too fast, and everyone owes the same debt later. It's fast, it's early, and it's the one part of this course every runner has already seen in a photo months before race day. People run it harder than they should. Not because the bridge itself is punishing. Because it's the first big moment of the morning, the crowd noise is loud, and adrenaline does what adrenaline always does to a runner who's only 3 kilometers in. After the bridge, the course settles. Circular Quay, then the rocks, then a stretch through the CBD with crowds still thick on both sides of the road. Runners find rhythm here. This is the part of the race where people start deciding the morning is going well. Then Oxford Street shows up and almost nobody respects it because on the course map it sits around the 15-kilometre mark. 15 kilometers into a marathon still reads as the easy third. Pacing guides for this race tend to treat that stretch as early. The hill itself doesn't read the pacing guides. It's the second real climb on the course, and it's the first one that actually hurts, because it lands exactly when glycogen starts thinning and legs stop running on the free credit handed out by that opening downhill. On any other day, Oxford Street is one of Sydney's livelier strips, full of bars, cafes, and shop fronts. On race day, all of that energy turns into an incline most runners didn't train hard enough for. The danger was never any single hill. It's the sequence. A downhill start that tempts you into banking time you haven't earned. A bridge climb that spends effort while the view does all the talking. A flat, rhythmic middle section that convinces you the hard part is behind you. Then Oxford Street, arriving at the exact moment all 3 of those decisions come due at once. Marathon runners are bad at judging effort in real time, and that's not a character flaw. Fatigue in this event rarely builds in a straight line. It waits, then arrives all at once. Oxford Street just happens to be where Sydney's course forces that arrival early, while most runners are still operating on first-half confidence. This also isn't a small hill on an otherwise flat course. The TCS Sydney Marathon carries 313 meters of total elevation gain across the road. That's more climbing than Boston, more than New York. Among the 7 world marathon majors, Sydney is the hilliest of the lot, full stop. Berlin and Chicago built their reputations on being flat and fast. Sydney was never built to be either of those things, and Oxford Street is the point where that stops being a line on an elevation chart and starts being the actual race. Boston has Heartbreak Hill, and everyone training for Boston trains for it by name because it sits inside the last 10 kilometers, right when that race is already falling apart for most runners. Oxford Street doesn't get that treatment. It arrives while roughly 2/3 of the race still lies ahead, which is exactly why almost nobody trains for it with the same seriousness. Sydney's problem was never that the climb is harder than Heartbreak Hill. It's that nobody prepares for a hill that shows up while they still think they're in the safe part of the race. None of this shows up in the marketing because none of it photographs well. You can put the Harbour Bridge on a poster. You can put the Opera House on a poster. Oxford Street is a shopping strip, not a landmark, and that's exactly why nobody talks about it until the morning they're standing at the bottom of it, wondering why their legs feel 10 kilometers older than the number on their watch. The fix is boring, which is usually a sign it's correct. Run the downhill start under control instead of banking time you'll lose back later with interest. Cross the bridge on effort, not on whatever pace the view is tempting you to hold. Keep something specific in reserve for the climb that never makes the trailer. Effort bands beat pace targets on a course like this one, hold rhythm on the flat sections, Let pace drift upward on the climbs without spending extra effort chasing a number that isn't there to chase. Let the downhills return some of that time on their own without forcing an overstride to bank more of it. Runners who follow that structure arrive at Oxford Street with a plan still intact. Runners who don't arrive with math that no longer works. If you're running this race in the next week, this is the one number worth carrying with you, 15. Not as a distance to survive, but as the point where the actual race starts, no matter how comfortable the morning has felt up to then. Everything before it is warm-up dressed up as racing. Last year's race makes the same point from the winner's side. Hailemariam Quiros ran 2 hours, 6 minutes and 6 seconds, the fastest marathon ever run on Australian soil. Sifan Hassan ran 2 hours, 18 minutes and 22 seconds, beating the previous women's best by more than 4 minutes. Both times were set on this exact course, hills included. The climb didn't stop either result. It meant both of them had to run smarter through it than everyone chasing them that morning. That's the real story behind Sydney Marathon's hidden hill. It isn't hidden because nobody's found it. It's hidden because the race didn't need it to sell 40,000 entries and because 15 kilometers in still sounds early enough that most runners walk to the start line, convinced the hard part is still hours away. It isn't. It's on Oxford Street, and it arrives while you're still telling yourself you're in the easy part of the morning.